Russia, Russia, Russia.
Fight for Ukraine. New world order.
Yeah, as if the AI taking over was not enough to melt our brains. We have Bloomberg.com. Headline here. Putin calls up more troops, resumes nuclear threat over Ukraine.
There it is. He's back, baby.
It's heating up.
You thought he was going soft. You know, it's really funny. Before you get into this, I'll just mention, I was recently sort of just trying to keep up with what was going on. There's quite a lull after, Ukraine's big offensive. They won back, blah, 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 blah. It was fairly quiet. And there were some pretty popular analysts who were like, it's kind of weird. We haven't heard a nuclear threat from Putin in a while. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's good news. He's stopped threatening nukes. Haha, we win. And then it was like a day later, this came out.
That's how it works. Make the call. All right, here we go. It says Russian President Vladimir Putin declared a partial mobilization, calling up 300,000 reservists in a major escalation of his flagging invasion of Ukraine, which he portrayed as a fight to the death with the U.S. and its allies. As Russia moves to annex occupied Ukrainian territory, Putin also renewed his warnings of a nuclear threat. Quote, "When the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will certainly use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people," he said in a televised national address Wednesday. "This is not a bluff." Scary.
You know, when they say this is not a bluff, that's how you know it's totally not a bluff.
Yeah, well, is he holding up his end of the bargain here? Because I feel like Putin, he's not following directions for World War III. He's supposed to pull off the nuke already, blow some stuff up.
Yeah, well, sounds like what's exactly being threatened, huh?
Yeah, why doesn't he do it?
You sound a little bit too anxious for Putin to launch the nukes, guns.
Okay, well, dailymail.co.uk here. Putin keeps the world waiting. Russian leaders' promised 6 p.m. address declaring war fails to happen.
Oh, this was so funny. Yeah, so... it was right after this. So, let's just read. I'll read the bullet points here.
Okay.
Where did you read the whole headline?
Yeah, the whole headline.
Putin keeps the world waiting. Russian leader to make address to declare war within hours after postponing it on Tuesday amid confusing reports from Kremlin and scoffing from rivals that he can't even mobilize a speech. Now, there is a large contingent of war hawks in Russia who want this to be considered full-on war. And the differences are, right now, technically, it is a special operation. The special operation to go into Ukraine and, kill Nazis. And it's kind of, you got to bring this all the way back to post-World War II New World Order, where you don't fight to take land, you don't fight to take resources, you're kind of allowed to do military operations for safety. Whatever your military operation is, it has to be for the preservation of the new liberal world order. Remember, last year we had politicians talking about this all the time. Earlier this year. And in order to, it was kind of part of the plan. This is a special operation. We're not doing sort of like empire building. We're just going to kill Nazis to save our Russian friends in Ukraine. And it's been that way for a long time because politically, if you called it all out war, it is not just like a little military operation the government is doing. That's why in Afghanistan and Iraq, even the US barely called it a war. They were there for a couple years before it was actually called a war. And because when you call something a war, especially in Russia, you mobilize the entire country. It then becomes everybody's problem. And as up until now, Putin has been trying to kind of keep it like, oh, this is just a little side project. Regular Russian citizens don't need to like change their lives or get too involved or ask too many questions. This is just a little thing we're doing.
Or get thrown off of boats and buildings and cars.
Well, that could be considered a special operation too. A special operation life raft. So he's been avoiding calling all out war because it really changes the whole landscape of Russia politically and just for the lifestyle of everybody there. So he comes on, he doesn't call an all out war. He calls, he mobilizes some more reserves, which is a special way to say, conscripting soldiers. Mm-hmm. And here's some of the bullet points. And so you had that article before from Bloomberg.
Yes.
It was a very serious tone. Ooh, Putin's gonna nuke. He's calling more souls. He's getting more serious. Yeah. But then the Daily Mail comes and is like, oh wow, he said he was gonna call war. Now he's just a big baby. What are you, some sort of sleepy chicken, Putin? Headlines or the bullet points read, Putin kept the world waiting nearly 2 hours and ultimately appeared to cancel. When they say cancel, they mean the war.
No, he's supposed to hold up his end of the war, the state, the play. Why isn't he playing along?
They're making fun of him for not going full on war, which it really sounds like the UK is trying to goad Putin. They want the full war. We know this, by the way. Russian state media had announced the president would give a speech Tuesday. It would have been his first international speech since the invasion of Ukraine. Pundits predicted he would use the speech to mobilize Russian citizens to fight. And that's the real crux of it, to mobilize the entirety of his country to get behind all out war. And this article is hilarious because it just makes fun of him for not doing that, which is we've seen over and over. The mainstream media in the West loves to call him a coward, loves to say he's not as great as he says he is. And it seems like it works very well to goad him into what they want him to do. In this case, all out war and to start making nuclear threats again, which is nice. And on the same side, I guess the other side, this is a story that was not getting literally zero mainstream US reporting. And it'll become clear pretty quick. This is coming from AlJazeera.com. They're the international news in the Middle East. There.
It is dated April 6th. I'm looking at it now. Didn't notice that before.
No, really?
Yeah.
What? That is strange. What
was the one
I was looking at before? Oh, no.
Do
you remember this quote? Because I could not find this quote anywhere else.
I might have. I might have seen or heard about it from some more fringier posts and stuff, but I don't think there was. I didn't remember a mainstream source on it. So
what's interesting? I got this quote. I got this article from another outlet that was a little
Rumble
sketchy.
Video.
I know. It's just an outlet, a non-mainstream outlet.
There you go.
And I said, oh, I don't want to pull the non-mainstream. So the non-mainstream is posting this more recently, but this is sort of some mainstream backup for it. But it's interesting. Listen to it. Zelensky says wants Ukraine to become a big Israel. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he wants his country to become a big Israel with its own face after the Russian invasion ends, stressing that security would likely be the main issue in Ukraine during the post-war period. And I think it actually makes it more interesting that this was back in April, because this was the war had really only been going on a month and a half by April 5th.
Yeah, I feel like he said the quiet part loud here, though. He was not supposed to say all that.
Yeah, it's the purpose of this is the transformation, at least from his perspective here. In comments to local media posted on the president's official website on Tuesday, Zelensky stressed that his vision for Ukraine's post-conflict future included having armed forces in, quote, all institutions, supermarkets, cinemas. There will be people with weapons. He's talking about after the war. He's trying to imagine his country after the war. In Israel, images of armed civilians, settlers, and soldiers are commonplace, and the government invokes security frequently. Zelensky, who is Jewish, has on several occasions stressed the importance of maintaining close ties with Israel, which he hailed as a model for Ukraine. Quote, I am sure that our security issue will be number one in the next 10 years, Zelensky said, dismissing the idea that post-war Ukraine would emulate a liberal European democracy, such as Switzerland as a model. He said that the Ukrainian people, quote, will be our great army. Zelensky...
Well, that doesn't sound authoritarian at all, but, you know... Let's just ignore that. Keep going.
Interesting comment, by the way. It comes up later. Zelensky also said that Ukraine would not be, quote, absolutely liberal, European, that it would have to undertake a different modus operandi. Quote, Ukraine will definitely not be what we wanted it to be from the beginning. It is impossible, he told members of the Ukrainian media during a briefing. Quote, absolutely liberal, European. It will not be like that. It will definitely come from the strength of every house, every building, every person.
Perfect hive mind. We will have a perfect hive mind, unlike those other countries.
Now listen to this. This answers your question. Zelensky stressed that Ukraine would not slide into authoritarianism. Quote, an authoritarian state would lose to Russia. People know what they're fighting for, he said.
If that is not the most 1984 statement out of Zelensky's mouth, I don't know what is. I guess he's got a lot, but this has got to be up there.
Yeah, and then it goes on and on and on. And this is being repeated recently, floating around the social media and other more recent articles, and is completely impossible to find in the mainstream, which is hilarious because the people with I stand with Ukraine and Ukraine flags on their Twitter, if they knew that Zelensky's plan was to give every household guns and to have guns in the supermarkets and the theaters, to have a completely armed security state, it would be pretty difficult to get the liberal support of Americans and Europeans as well.
It feels like the same people are involved in sort of not letting this information out in America. The last thing I remember with Israel, especially pertaining to Ukraine, was that Israel was sort of taking a neutral stance. They were kind of helping both sides a little bit, which is pretty Rothschildian kind of behavior. But the news media was saying, hey, they're going to need to pick a side soon because, stuff's getting hot over there between Ukraine and Russia. And Israel can't be helping out these oligarchs with their boats, if they're really going to be part of the future here. Or at least that's what we were told is sort of the tension going on in Israel. So kind of fascinating to think that maybe they're just in charge of all of it to suck more money into bigger Israel. Well,
if he did say it back in April, now, interestingly enough, you say that bigger Israel, some of the translations from the Ukrainian language called it greater Israel.
Oh, so even more biblical, even more straightforward.
We're not going to be a big Israel. We're going to be a greater Israel. Yeah. But, you think of Israel, what is it? It's basically a military proxy for the U.S.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the modern nation state, just to clarify.
Yes, not biblical ancient Israel. Yeah. I'm talking about the modern nation state of Israel is Americans' military proxy in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. We send billions of dollars over there every year, specifically just for military. Yep.
Iron Dome, baby. We built it.
And Zelensky is kind of setting up his own. He's like, that looks like a great deal. Look, I'll arm everybody. And it must have worked because, of course, since April, we've just continually sent billions of dollars over there. It's kind of like part of the American military like proxy wall being set up between the East and the West.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting to watch.
Yeah.